You may have noticed all the disclaimers on my courses and my videos lately and in the description section, making it clearer than ever, as clear as possible, that I'm not a therapist or doctor. And I'm pretty sure most everyone here knows that I'm someone who recovered from my own complex PTSD symptoms. And I basically just teach other people the techniques that I used that helped me do that, and the principles that I follow that I didn't originally to get my life together and that I still follow and teach other people, so that we can all avoid falling back into the old self-defeating behaviors that are so common for people like us. Now, I now know that self-defeating behaviors are totally normal for anyone who grew up with trauma. They're normal for all people, but I think we sometimes get more of our share. So a few people on this channel say they're surprised that I would know things about healing, and a few are, like it makes them angry that I speak with a kind of natural authority about how I healed, or that it was, claiming that it was successful for me, or that I've noticed, what my trauma symptoms are like, and I describe them and other people relate to them. So these are people I would call credentialists. They're people who believe very strongly that it's important to get the degree in psychology or, the social work or whatever, to be qualified to talk about mental health. Now, I strongly disagree, because mental health is something that we all live in. It gets good, it gets bad, we get our experience with it, and we're all living in the world with other people, and we're seeing how they deal with it. And our life is a deep lesson. Now, one credentialist type person once told me that I should put a disclaimer on my simple meditation tutorial saying that people should only meditate in the presence of a licensed professional. So that, I'd say, is like too extreme. That's not true. You can meditate without a therapist present. The thing that also bothers me about it, really is the elitism of thinking we all have these good therapists that are beck and call. And so every time we want to meditate, we could just call them up and they'd come sit with us and make sure that we were safe and didn't get carried away. That's going too far. But I get the point that for some things, there's a level of distress where you would want a licensed person. And of course, it's not on YouTube. And I would think that the name Crappy Childhood Fairy is sort of points to, like, not only am I not a therapist, but I'm not trying to make this into therapy. I talk about very practical things. Sometimes I read letters from you, those of you who write in with some, dilemma in your life. You want me to help you troubleshoot it. So I thought I'd make a video so anyone who wants to know about credentials or lack thereof in my life can learn why I know, how I got to know what I know, why I believe what I do, and why I say what I do say. All right. So I got this comment, and this is a perfectly nice comment, nothing wrong with it, but this is the one that made me decide to make this video. And they said, how are you not a therapist or physician? I'm shocked. Just out of curiosity, what is your schooling and background? So they're not trying to challenge me. I do get emails where they're like, how dare you? You have no right to talk about this stuff. And again, I disagree. I've lived with it. I've recovered from it. I talk about what it's like. So here's me. I have a master's degree in public policy from the Goldman School at UC Berkeley. I have a bachelor's degree in video production from San Francisco State University from long ago. All of this has been helpful. All of this has shaped me, but none of these degrees are what informs my work. Before I did Crappy Childhood Fairy, I had a long history of working in community health. I worked quite a bit on trying to improve clinic performance and the patient experience in a very large national healthcare system. So that was a work history that I had. And after that, I had a video production company where I made medical education. A lot of it was medical education. And I created dramatic scenarios to show how to have difficult conversations in a medical environment, which also shaped me. It came part of, I knew what I knew from living my life, but part of that shaped me. Most of what I know, I learned from the necessity of healing myself in a world that didn't get me at all. I clearly had complex PTSD. There didn't used to be knowledge at the time that my symptoms were overwhelming my life. There didn't used to be knowledge. I tell the story in my book, Re-Regulated. If you haven't read that yet, I hope you will. And I tell the story at the beginning about how hopeless I was. I was in therapy 3 times a week. I was talking about some recent traumas that had happened. I had some bad ones. My mother died. I was attacked on the street violently. That was among other things. But I had PTSD, but for whatever reason, the doctor didn't diagnose it as such. And the therapist thought I just needed to talk about what happened. And the idea was I would, talk and talk, and then it would go away. It was, that's a very deep belief in the history of therapy. And it's a little bit still out there. And it's a little bit true in some cases too. But we now know that people who had an intense traumatic event may not do well talking about it. And if they show signs of getting into distress and they're breathing rapidly and their heart is pounding, it means they may not want to talk about it. It's not a good time. It's actually triggering, putting them into a, fight or flight response that's making their trauma reaction worse. So in my case, I've pursued all that therapy. For me, it wasn't particularly helpful, but I want to make clear, I am not knocking it for other people. First of all, one of the things that was helpful is sometimes when I was very alone in the world and in a lot of distress, going to a therapist was at least somebody. Now, the thing was, because I had grown up in such a deeply, not just dysfunctional, but really messed up family with some hardcore drug addicts and alcoholics amongst the, maybe like half the family members. There was violence. We were really poor, not just a little poor, but like hungry poor a lot of the time. And then there was something wrong with my mom in addition to the drinking and the drugs, where when she would get loaded, she would tell the kids that she never wanted any of us. That's a little more than just drinking, right? It was this core feeling she had that would leak out. And it was really hard for us to deal with. And we laughed about it at the time. We almost made fun of it. We're like, oh, boo-hoo, she doesn't even want us. But here we are. We had this other joke where we'd parody ourselves and we go, Mommy, I need antibiotics. No, I'm too drunk. It's not really funny, right? But these were the sort of jokes that we made as kids because it was just that chaotic. So when I would go to therapy, I sometimes felt that they were looking at my problems, my present day problems, through the lens of somebody who, whatever they had in their childhood, it wasn't that chaotic. It wasn't that harsh. And sometimes I think they would just gauge because I presented well, I was this like white girl, and they would think, oh, well, maybe it wasn't that bad, but it was really bad. And I was completely lacking in a lot of social graces and common sense knowledge about how you deal with stuff like setting boundaries. I literally had no idea how you do that. Everything I knew, I learned from TV. So there I was going to therapy. I had had a lot of experience, and all that was available to me was these people who didn't get me. And they were sort of informed by theory and books and all this stuff. And honestly, I just did not feel that it applied to me. And I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure that the theories kind of address stuff. But there was this like gut level spiritual wound that wasn't about any theory. It was just this. There's no words for it. And that's the thing when you get traumatized as a kid. It happens before you have words, some of it, the early stuff. And so you can't really talk about it. You can talk about things, but there's a lot of stuff you can't get to. Nonetheless, I would read psychology. I read social sciences. I read history, philosophy, theology. After the many years of therapy, I got into 12-step recovery, which was some of the most potent healing that I did. I mean, it like really helped me very quickly. And I spent 25 years there and sat through, I'm sure, thousands of meetings. I used to go many times a week. I heard people, I witnessed their struggles and their victories, and I noticed the correlations between their suffering and what they were doing and thinking and how things turned out now. So that was a lot of like case studies. If you had learned that in school, it would be like, when you watch people over 10, 15, 25 years about how they change or don't change and what they were doing, I got a very like definite idea of what I thought were good things to do. And during those years, that's a sponsor in 12-step. It's somebody who kind of shows somebody else the 12 steps and sort of mentors them through the process. And so I did that for at least 300 women and guided them, using this sort of off the beaten track program that I followed. It wasn't exactly right out of the book. It was daily. What I do as the daily practice now was then called for me the daily steps. And someone showed it to me. And to this day, there are a couple hundred people around the world who are doing that way. It's not that common. Not everybody needs to do 12-step work every day, but I did. I responded very strongly to it. And I continue to do it. It's been like 31 years. It works really beautifully. I just did it before I was taping today, and I fell asleep for a second, but I was so refreshed. I thought I was so tired I couldn't go on today. And then I came out of it, and I was just like ready for another, segment of the day, ready to go. The thing is what I saw is that people who were doing this daily practice with me, their circumstances were sometimes worse to begin with, but the way that they changed after doing it was so dramatic, you just couldn't miss it. There was like a brightness in their eyes. There was a lightheartedness, a cheerfulness. And cheerfulness goes a long way. Like when you have trauma wounds, it can make a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, prickly, defensive, difficult. And using the daily practice would make me just kind of like more neutral, more friendly, more flexible, and more able to set boundaries and be honest about how I felt. So I saw a lot of people who were focusing more on like talking about the trauma. This is certainly not true in every case, but the pattern that I saw is that they became very invested in trying to name everything that was going on around them, and in some cases, to protect themselves from triggers by avoiding triggers, like just isolating from them or trying to get other people not to trigger them. And the thing about the daily practice technique that I had learned, the whole culture of it was we were learning, like, if you're feeling all upset about the way somebody is acting, and I'm not talking about when people are dangerous. Of course, you have to deal with danger for what it is. But when things are annoying or, what we call triggering, that you could use the daily practice to kind of name and release the fearful and resentful thoughts about it and not be so bothered by it. And for me, that was life-changing. I used to get just so bothered by everything. I used to get so bothered and then angry because in my mind, it would just seem like, don't you see how, irritating or threatening you're being to me when you are sitting there being yourself in my presence? Can't you just stop doing that? And so I think I put a lot of pressure on people. I was prickly, I was critical, and it was sort of based on this assumption that they should change for me. Now, of course, there are situations where that is exactly the case, right? But in my case, and I see a lot of cases around me, and I saw it a lot in 12-step rooms, that's not a very helpful way of going through life. And I think they have this saying in AA, life on life's terms. We learn to meet life on life's terms. And it's this glorious freedom when you can do that and not be so bothered by the way that people, they're annoying, they're difficult, they intrude, they interrupt you when you're talking, they have unreasonable expectations on you. So what's going to happen to you emotionally? What's going to happen in your nervous system when this happens? Are you going to be able to, in a friendly and lighthearted and natural way, be able to say, oh, I hear what you just asked me, but no, sorry, I can't do that for you today. Good luck, though. That was like a whole revolution in how I could deal with the world. I used to get very bent out of shape and thought I'd have to people please or sacrifice myself or get into an argument about it. And it was exhausting. So I really liked my daily practice approach over the therapy approach. It set me free. Now, many around me in the 12-step world thought that my program was too unorthodox. I wasn't doing it right. As a matter of fact, in 12-step, you can't really say that nobody's doing it right. Everybody's sort of free to interpret it for themselves. But like I said, people are annoying and we get annoyed with each other. But when I was sponsoring, I would sometimes get pushback about that. And I would say, well, no problem. Just don't work with me. Go find a different sponsor. That was my protection. So this really big leap happened for me in terms of, when I recovered, I had this huge, I just wanted to share it with everybody. I was so messed up before I found the daily practice, and so quickly did I start to feel better that I was quite excited as I would be if I found the cure to cancer. I would need and want and desire to tell people about it. I'd want as many people as possible to benefit from it. And that's exactly how I did feel and how I do feel. And that's why I have a free course teaching the daily practice. There's a link to it below every video. If you sign up for it, you can come to free calls with me on Zoom twice a month. I go through the techniques with people and we use the techniques together and I take questions. And these are like 2-hour calls and they cost nothing and they're the great joy of my life. They're really lovely. I love helping people adopt this tool that for so many of them provides a kind of comfort and ease and release from trauma symptoms that they couldn't have before. And for the record, I think about 15% of the people who come to my programs are themselves therapists and doctors. And I love that. I'm so happy for all of us to be together using techniques that work for us. Because, therapists and doctors also lived through trauma, some of them. And they also need tools that help them re-regulate and feel comfort on the spot. And many of them refer their patients and clients to Crappy Childhood Fairy to have them learn the daily practice or to watch a particular video about a concept they'd like them to think about before the next session. So these things can go very well together, even though those are the clinical people who are credentialed, and I am not a licensed psychologist or anything in the mental health field. I'm just somebody who acquired a great deal of mental health compared to where I had been. Let's not make giant claims, right? Because I have flaws like anybody. But I had a breakthrough, and I've had the pleasure of witnessing thousands of other people have a breakthrough too. It's simple, it helps, and it can help people whether or not they have access to professional help. It has not been scientifically evaluated. I hope it will be. And if you're watching this and you're in a position to evaluate, get in touch with me. Hello at Crappy Childhood Fairy. I'd like to do that sometime in the next couple of years. But before we have official scientific evidence that, oh yes, this works for X number of people, we can just try it. It's simple enough to try. So the techniques I learn are simple enough to try. And if they help you, you can do them. If you don't like them, don't do them. No problem. I always tell everybody, take what I teach you with a grain of salt. So I was shaped very much by the 12-step program. And you will notice it in what I teach here. Now, a few wise people who I respect very much, I finally got the courage back. It's been, almost 20 years ago. And this was after I had the daily practice, but I was still struggling with a lot of life problems. And I asked for advice to help me to take some big leaps in my life. And these people were very strong influences on me too. And the faith that I gradually acquired while I was healing also is a big influence on me. It guides me. I don't talk about it that much. I feel like it's important to me that the Crappy Childhood Fairy method and message are very accessible to all kinds of people, different faiths, no faith, people who are totally upset about what happened in religion. All kinds of people are welcome in my programs and in my calls. So sometimes I just come out and I say, well, I'm a God person now. I came to believe in God because when I healed, it was so dramatic. And it was suggested to me at the beginning, why don't you just go ahead and say a prayer and ask? And I was like, you better freaking help me because I don't even know what I'm going to do here. Well, I did feel better. I felt dramatically better. And as they say in 12-step, I was guided to call that the higher power. And wow, I've just discovered like it's real. There's a higher power. And sometimes I would doubt it. Over the 31 years I've been healing my trauma, my sense of, is there God, has gone up, down. It's traveled a bit. But the thing is, no matter what I think about it, like it doesn't matter what I believe about it, what is. And here's what I know is. And it's that when I get hurt, if I skin my elbow, my skin will heal, even though I don't know how to heal. It's not like an intellectual thing that I have to figure out how to do. It's a natural part of me to heal, that there's this inclination, this direction that my body goes in towards original state. And now, eventually, I'm 62 years old. I don't look like I did when I was a baby. Time is showing itself on me, but that's natural. And still, my cells are regenerating all the time. They're regenerating with the same DNA. They're doing the same job. And there's this inclination for my body, almost like it's sort of going down a river very easily back towards the form it's meant to be in. So my skin heals. Now, we all know there are some injuries that can't heal by themselves, like an amputation, that you could not get that back, a limb, a finger. You couldn't get it back, but you could have a workaround that would help you continue to function. And I know many people who do, in the example of an amputation. And I think trauma is like that. It's a lot like that. There are some things that heal naturally and easily, and we get restored to more or less mint condition with some signs of aging. And there are some things where we don't get the thing back, but we find a workaround. And one example of that, I would say, in my case, is to be loved in childhood and kept safe. Like I will never have that. I'm not really like an inner child work person. I know for a lot of people that's like great. It's not really my thing. But I accept that I'm never going to be a child again. My mother has been off the planet for 31 years, same amount of time that I've been healing. Coincidence? No. And I'm not going to have that love from her that I missed when I was a child. I got some, but it wasn't like that safe kind of certain love that wasn't punctuated with, I wish I'd never had you, right? I'm not going to get that back. The workaround is that I can create a support system around me. And that was not easy for me for a long time. Healing had to happen for me to begin to build a support system. And I needed to form a support system in order to heal. Like they both have to happen at the same time. That's my experience. It's very hard to heal all by yourself or just talking to one expert. That healing is a lot like we get it through friction with the world, through interacting with people, through going to work and getting, freaked out about how somebody talked to us, through almost getting hit in the crosswalk. These things that take our nervous system and they go, and then we bring ourselves back down. Practice. And as we heal, we can start to speak up a little bit more. So when somebody mistreats you, you can begin to speak up on your own behalf. You know how when you don't have a lot of healing, you can't really gracefully speak up for yourself. It comes out either as it doesn't come out, you just eat it, or it comes out like much later, like finally you lash out, you explode. That's what early healing looks like. So all of this is to say, I've had the opportunity to live it and experience it and watch it in other people and support them. And sometimes my support was off base, but really gradually over time, I just got kind of better at it. And sometimes I miss the mark. I know that. I don't worry about it that much because this is the beauty of claiming that you're the crappy childhood fairy and not a professional is there's some rules that I don't have to stick to. I don't have to be right. I guess nobody does really. I don't have to be right. I can give caveats. I go, I don't know, take what you like, take it with a grain of salt. I could be wrong. But I can go in and I can tell people my opinion. And when they write letters, they're like, what do you think? So I was just talking to a group of therapists at a party this weekend, and they were like, well, we can't tell people because that would be imposing our views on them. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's your job. My job is give me your opinion. And I give my opinion on it. And that, I gotta admit, that suits me. It's pretty hard to resist giving my opinion on things. So I'm a fairy, they're a therapist. The other thing I can do that I think therapists could do, but after seeing 11 or 12 of them, I would say they never did this for me. And it's something that I really wanted. I didn't get it till my 12-step sponsor and some of my mentors who I sought out later. And it was, could you give me some moral guidance? I was very mixed up about like the right thing to do. And to a large degree, there is a right thing to do. There are some things that are just plain wrong, a bad idea, don't do them. And the way that I had grown up, I just ended up feeling kind of fuzzy about those things. And it was really helpful for me to have people who just said, yeah, just don't lie, period. Just don't tell lies. If you feel that you're going to hurt somebody's feeling, that supersedes and you give more thought to that. And they'd say, you can call me when in doubt if you're worried that telling the truth is going to hurt somebody. In 12-step life, there's that thing, except when to do so would injure them or others. So there's injure and then there's frankness. And that was a fine line. I tend to be very direct. That's why YouTube suits me, because I can say very strong things about my opinion, but the YouTube provides a barrier so that even if you're the person who wrote the letter, it's not like me sitting there standing right in your face going, I think you're making a mistake. So there are things I can do that therapists, it's not ethical for them to do, but that doesn't make me unethical. I'm like the friend who you write to, and I do not give unsolicited advice. When people ask me, I will tell them what I think. And sometimes I won't tell them what I think. And some reasons why I won't include, I read the letter and I think they're in such a fragile place that I don't want them to be subjected to the inevitable like yucky comments you get on YouTube. I don't think that everybody is in a place where they could bear that. And I can't be the final judge of that. When people write a letter to me, and anybody can, you can write me a letter. There's a link down below in the description section that tells you the link to use. And right away, what happens when you fill out that form is you get advised, like, this is not therapy. If you're in crisis, you should see a professional. If you're really in an emergency, you should call on an emergency basis, get crisis help. And we give an international number and a US number for that. We do our best to provide that help. From time to time, we get emails from people who are in crisis, and they're telling us, and it's very difficult because we don't even know where they are. We don't even know what country they're in, usually. And so there's very little we can do. My team has instructions on how to handle those crises and do everything we can to find out where that person is. And we will call the police. We will call emergency services if we're in that position. It rarely happens. And I don't want to encourage you to come to us because we're not the people who can help. We're not therapists. We're not geographically near you. We don't know who the people are in your community or who you are. But I just want to reassure you, we're very, very careful and responsible about that. And I had a lucky break when I was first starting Crappy Childhood Fairy. I was concerned about how to deal with people who were in crisis or in danger of hurting themselves. And you know who advised me on that? Pete Walker himself. Great man, wrote the book CPTSD From Surviving to Thriving, happens to live and practice near me. And I got an appointment with him. And I talked to him about it. And what he told me, I've always followed. He said, look, don't even worry. You're not a therapist. You don't take responsibility for trying to save people in the situation. Because initially I would spend all evening responding to somebody's letters going, please don't hurt yourself. You know, you have so much to live for. And I meant well, but it was burning me out like really fast. I never would have been able to go on more than a few weeks doing that. He said, don't do that. You refer them to the experts for that. That's what experts do best. So I want to reassure you, I am in my lane on this one. I give advice like your girlfriend or your auntie or your mom. A lot of people relate to me as a mom, I think. And I will tell you what I think. It's your job to disagree with me if you don't like it. I ask that you be civil in the comments is all. I try to be civil with everybody here. And I teach very practical things because I believe, and over 100,000 clinicians agree with me, that no matter what modality that you're using with professionals or you're not working with professionals, you need daily tools that you can use in the moment that help you feel better and help you get emotional relief. I just found being in active complex PTSD symptoms was torturous. It could be so painful. It was like having my head on fire sometimes, very painful. I needed a way to unpack that and to release it. And then the other thing that I've come to believe very strongly in is because we can't do everything by ourselves, and whether or not you have access to professional help or want to be accessing it, we need friends. We need a group of people who are also healing, who get it, who are safe to tell. You know, gosh, I'm just having a really hard time right now. I want to call that guy. And they can say, do you want me to help you not call the guy? All right, let's get on Zoom together while we watch TV together and we'll have a laugh and we'll make ourselves a cup of tea and talk or get together in person. There's just no substitute for real people in your life who know what you're going through and who can give a kind word when you need a kind word. And I know that so many people who have grown up with trauma, and maybe you too, you've had to go without that so much that you're like tough. You try to do it by yourself. And even to the point that you feel uncomfortable trying to heal in front of other people or, God forbid, ask for help. I am the same way. And I had to overcome it only because things got bad enough that I had no choice. And I'm kind of grateful, at least for that I got through that barrier where I could ask for help. I got a lot of help. People were very generous with me, but along with the incidences of generosity were incidences of total getting people to turn their back on me. They said no, they didn't get back to me. That's also part of it, which is all the more reason why we need to kind of spread it around. We can't necessarily depend on one person we know or one little group. It needs to be spread around. You need support. You deserve support. So I really believe that. You need tools that help you get at what exactly is it? Now, some people, they see it as trauma is stored in your body. I don't really resonate with that one. A lot of people do. I resonate with it's stored in the form of fearful and resentful thoughts and feelings in here. And when I get upset about something, it's an opportunity for me to get it out, to face it, to name it and get it on paper, ask for it to be removed. And then, as part of my daily practice, 20 minutes of meditation, just It feels so good. And I am melted again. The stress of it all is released again. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have problems. It doesn't mean I don't come out of meditation remembering something quite worrying that's going on in my life, because that's real sometimes. But not all of it. Not all the stuff that I worry about or stress about is anything that I ever need to think about again, or as much as I do. So I also, when I'm writing my fears and resentments, I keep this extra pad of paper that I call intentions, and I'll be teaching about that more in the future. But my intentions is a place where just things that come into my mind, my to-do list, some stuff I remember, and inspiration. I'll tell you, most of my video ideas, they come to me while I'm meditating. It's such a nuisance, right? I can't meditate if I've got this idea for a video. I've got to write it down. I've got to write it down or I'll forget about it. I won't be able to meditate if I don't get a chance to write it down. Now, sometimes, I'm going to have stoned thoughts. If you've ever smoked weed and then got a great idea and written it down, and then you see it the next day and you're just like, well, what even is that? Maybe it's a good idea, but maybe it's not. So in the past, I had experiences where whatever I wrote down was inscrutable or disappointing. But usually what comes to me during meditation is worth transferring over to my Kanban board, and I keep track, and I have this whole log of ideas. It's a total mess. One day people are going to see the thousands of notes I have in there about ideas. And then every once in a while, one of them, I'll read through them, just kind of say, what do I want to make a video about today? And I look at it, and one of them just seems to jump out at me, and there's a lot of meaning in it and a lot I want to say. And that's kind of my creative process. So making these videos, sometimes it's a lot of focused work, it's written. Sometimes it's an inspiration and it's just delightful and it works. Sometimes it doesn't work very well and it's kind of a tedious video and it doesn't perform very well. But doing this, I see as my mission. There was something that happened when I first started making videos where I was able to articulate what it was like to be me with my symptoms. And much to my surprise, a whole bunch of people had exactly the same symptoms. They related to my experience, and I never knew this. I guess the symptoms I thought were weird things about me. They weren't things that I was open about. But once I knew what complex PTSD was, I was like, okay, yes, I have that. You know what it's like for me? This is what it feels like. And I would say I have a knack, a gift for putting into words what it feels like to have complex PTSD. I don't treat it. I'm not your therapist. I don't give you a treatment plan, but I can describe what it's like for me in a way that you might relate to. And I even have published these free downloads, where I list, these are a bunch of symptoms. And I know those because I read, because I look at symptoms. Now, even with AI, it's even better. I can be like, what is the symptom set that are officially recognized in the United States as CPTSD? Hint, it's all over the place. There's very little official about CPTSD. As I'm taping this, it's still not in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM. But it is definitely on the consciousness out there. A lot of people are talking about it, but it's a little bit subjective. So I'm just like, look, it is subjective with me. I'm telling you about me, and I'm telling you about what I read. It's for you to do your research and figure out how are you affected and what aspects of your personality and quirks in your behavior or shortcomings do you think might be trauma-driven? Because in the end, no matter what the books say, no matter what the experts say, you're going to need to really find truth in what you believe about yourself, in what you think is the problem and what you think needs to be done about it. I call that sovereignty. And I do resist a little bit this credentialism that says that if you go to this curriculum and study this canon of things, which I'm not knocking them, but I don't think they are everything there is to know about people and distress and what trauma does to people. They only gave this a name not that long ago, complex PTSD or dysregulation. And I think I was blessed to, very early on, to know these words and to react strongly to them and to start talking about them. I first started talking about dysregulation. I didn't know anybody who was. And now it's like, oh, it's delightful. They were talking about it at the SAG Awards, and they talk about it in TV shows. People know what it is now. I feel really good about that. And I think I might have played a role in popularizing that and helping people have a name for it, but I'm not the one who invented it. And I read it from people who were, Bessel van der Kolk and Pete Walker, and people who were credentialed. They had done a lot of research into the literature. So cool. I'm really good at the sort of practical ways that this plays out in life. And I've researched what's the difference between a therapist and a coach, because I guess that's what you'd call me, a coach. I don't coach very often, but let's call me that. I'm not a therapist. And the difference is a therapist is extremely knowledgeable and educated in how you could dive into somebody's childhood, and they know how to diagnose and name and create a treatment plan for that. And it might not always go perfectly, but they have a great deal of knowledge about what to do if a crisis appears. So that's their wheelhouse. They're very good at that. A coach is somebody who does not get involved in that necessarily. And as it happens, I'm not even drawn to, I'm not interested in talking about childhood stuff. That was not what resonated for me. I was very interested in what are some strategies I can do today to get a better outcome from what's going on in my life right now. And that's very much in the wheelhouse of a coach is, where are you right now? What are some things that occur that are challenging for you? What do you want to change about them? Do you want to create a little system for yourself for it to go better? That's what we do here. And that's why I say very confidently between talking about present day and things that we can do using knowledge that's readily available in books written by professionals, we can learn what is complex PTSD. We can decide if we relate to it. Can you diagnose yourself? I'll leave it to you. I think most people have to because it'd be very difficult to access professional help and especially knowledgeable professional help. It's not universal yet, not as I'm saying this in 2025. And so there's a lot of awareness out there, but it's uneven. And in the end, if you feel like you relate with these symptoms of dysregulation, I might be a good person for you to follow, and watch the videos and take the courses, because I just talk about practical ways to get through the day when you tend to get dysregulated, or when you tend to lash out, or when you tend to make impulsive relationship decisions. I'm your gal. I talk about practical things like that. And then, just to make sure, sometimes people in the comments, they say things like, and it's flattering, but it makes me nervous. They go, I went to therapy for 20 years and you're the first person who described what it's like to be me. I know what you're talking about. That's what it was for me when I read Bessel van der Kolk's work. I know what you're talking about. I get nervous because I don't want other people to get the impression that I'm a therapist or to get them to think, oh, I'm in therapy. You're not. You're not in therapy on any YouTube channel, period. And it's a special kind of relationship that has laws and protocols. And super important to do that and to understand the distinction. I do refer people in every video. I have a link to BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy resource. Some people are like, oh, I don't like it very much. And I'm like, I'm okay that you don't like it very much. Don't go there. But I want to know that anybody who feels like they do need therapy, because, YouTube just reaches all over the world, all languages, all cultures, all ages. I just want there to be something there that there's a way for people to access therapy if they have no other way to do it. And BetterHelp, the thing is, it's relatively inexpensive. They even have financial aid for people who qualify. They have services in 200 languages, which I just recently learned, and I kind of wanted to say something about that. I'm like, you guys, BetterHelp. There's a link down below if you want to try it. And I've been an affiliate partner with them for 4 years, where I get a commission if you sign up. But if you sign up using my link, you get 10% off and I get a commission. So everybody gets a little bonus. Thank you, BetterHelp. And that way, they're just trying to incentivize me to talk about it. If online therapy is not for you, if the sort of loosey-goosey nature of getting assigned to somebody and trying to tell them your story doesn't appeal to you, by no means am I trying to pressure you to do that. But I want you to have a resource that's relatively inexpensive and right there. I'm not in your community. I don't know where the therapists are for you. You're going to have to do that research. But actually, if you talk to somebody at BetterHelp, they can help you do that too. So if that interests you, down below, BetterHelp. And the link has CCF. It's betterhelp.com/CCF. And that gets you that 10% off. your first visit with them. So that's kind of cool. I think it's amazing that they've been able to put this together on such a wide scale. There's other companies that do it too, but that's who I work with, is BetterHelp. So I do that, and I am also friends with many therapists and doctors, and friends with fellow YouTubers who are in those fields, and PhDs and psychologists. That's not who I hang out with all day long every day, but I have a network of people I can call and ask questions. A couple people in my network are Patrick Tian, if you know him, great YouTube channel, often talks about CPTSD, and Emma McAdam of Therapy in a Nutshell. She's brilliant. She does videos that basically give you, well, the whole thing in a nutshell, like really good summaries of concepts and what to do in mental health. And so I have these living relationships with people. And sometimes when weird stuff has happened, I had like a personnel thing happen once, and I call my friends who are professionals and go, I feel like this person working with me might have a mental health thing. Can you help me understand what's going on and what I should do? And so I'm very grateful for that. I'm supported by people in all of that. So that's just something I wanted to tell you. Probably the biggest thing that teaches me about complex PTSD and how it plays out in lives and helps me become knowledgeable about it is that every day after I write and meditate, I start my day by reading all the YouTube comments. And I have learned so much about human beings from that. I've learned some of them are kind of mean. Some of them never watch the video before they lash out and say things. But gosh, people are extraordinary, and they tell stories about what they've been through, and they describe what's been helpful to them, or they say they're discouraged. And what amazes me is how loving people who have never met somebody who can go on there and say, I just heard your story and it moved me to tears and I just want to encourage you and I'm sending you a hug. It doesn't happen for everybody, but I just invite you, go look at the comments. And go notice how all through these conversations there are these amazing, loving people who go in and support, these tender people who have been through a lot. You know what? I encourage you. You want to feel a little better today? Just go in and put a loving comment to people. If they say something that was sad and you feel for them, or you understand, or you relate, let them know. Let them know. Have you ever commented in a social media situation and nobody responds? You know, and if you comment and say something's hard going on in your life, it doesn't feel good. And that's something I had to accept in doing Crappy Childhood Fairy. I couldn't be everything to everybody. There were times when people weren't going to get a reply, especially when it starts going down the thread. Like, I don't see all of that unless I go looking for it. It goes in, when a video's been around for a couple of years, you know, there's a lot of down thread stuff going on. So go in there and give a kind word if you can. If you see people who are like trolling or just saying cruel things, say something if you want. But overall, I've learned, like, don't even engage with those people. A lot of people who are being nasty, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get some energy. Probably they're depressed. That's my theory, is that people who are just like lashing out, you get a little bit of energy from it, and energy feels better than being like on the ground with depression. I'm not forgiving it. I don't like it either, but I personally have the power to delete comments if I catch it. And sometimes I do. I'm not a fan of cruelty. There's no point. I invite people to think of the comment section as my living room. You're coming over to Fairy's house to talk about things, and I expect you to treat my guests, especially the letter writers, with kindness and respect. And but I don't catch everything. So such is life. It's our community. And then finally, I get these thousands of letters from people asking for my advice on their situation. This is an education for me. It's not a psychology education in the formal canon and credentialed sense, but it is an education in how people's minds operate. I've figured out this whole connection. I always picture it like a wheel where if this happens in childhood, there's more and more possibility that it turns out like this. I've just noticed some correlations. Like when people don't have a sense of identity, their backstory often involves parents who didn't pay much attention to them. I know that sounds obvious, but the letters show me many things like that. I start to see the whole, I call it like the lexicon of suffering, I think. It's just it's like a wheel. And in my mind, I have synesthesia, by the way. And I often see things in shapes. I see months and days of the week. They have a gender and a color. by the way. It's a quirk of my mind, and it kind of helps me, I think. And so sometimes I read a letter and I see a lot about it in the way that I do. It has a color to me. It has a feel to me. And so sometimes I think it helps me kind of sense a little better what's going on. Sometimes even better than if somebody's like actually talking to me face to face. So I really enjoy the letters, and I really enjoy making videos, and I really enjoy the comments. So that's my education. I do have a formal education and I do this work, and I feel it's my calling. And I endeavor very earnestly to respect the limits of professional work, licensed clinical work versus what I do. And yet to still pour my heart out to be just as helpful and supportive as I can of other people. Now, do you want to learn the daily practice? I'm always asking people, but the longer I've been teaching it to people on this channel, the more I'm realizing I think there's a certain number of people it's not really for them. That's fine. Keep watching the videos or come take one of my courses on dating for people with childhood PTSD or, healing your symptoms or dysregulation. But this daily practice is the course I give away for free. And this is the technique to start relaxing that tense tangle of dark thoughts and feelings that I experience as trauma in action in my life. And I would love to share it with you. It's a free course. It takes about an hour to learn the techniques. There's more material there, the FAQs. I also teach it in great detail, including the history of it, who showed me, where it comes from, what's the relationship to 12-step and what's different about it, in my book, Re-Regulated. So if you haven't got that yet, that's a really just economical way to learn the whole, just the whole from beginning to end, how does my method work? And it's happily endorsed by quite a number of professional therapists and PhDs, and very grateful for that. And I get letters now from people who they didn't even know there was a YouTube channel. They read the book and they found out there's a YouTube channel. What a delight, right? So thank you for being a fan here or a follower. Thank you for your questions, trying to better understand what are my qualifications to say what I say, whether you were challenging me or glad that I wasn't a therapist. I'm here, I'm me, and I try to be 100% transparent. So keep healing, be sovereign, and use every resource that you find helpful. And if you want to try my daily practice technique, I've put a link to the free course right there. Love to see you. And if you take that, within a couple of weeks, you're going to be invited to a Zoom call with me, and you'll meet me live, and I'll be taking questions. So that could happen. All right. I'll see you very soon.